My name is Jamon McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Let's go ahead and talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to break down the Minnesota Vikings schedule, their roster, all that good stuff, and we will talk about how many games they will win in the 2020-21 NFL season. Let's get started. Now, a big storyline that I want to follow for the Minnesota Vikings is, can their quarterback Kirk Cousins continue to progress? Because I think Kirk Cousins is actually vastly underrated as a player. Last year Kirk Cousins had arguably his best season as a pro. 69% completion percentage, 3,603 yards, 26 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, and a 107.4 passer rating. And let's not forget, Adam Thielen missed 6 games last year, so Kirk Cousins had to virtually put the team on his back at times due to the fact that he did not have his best weapon, arguably, on the outside. And yes, I do believe Adam Thielen is better than Stephon Diggs. Fight me, okay? And also, a lot of Vikings fans last year were wondering, can Kirk Cousins win the big game? Can he do it? Can he shine bright in the biggest moments? And on the road in New Orleans in the playoffs, he beat Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. He outplayed Drew Brees in that game. He beat a team that was arguably the best team in all of football. I know the 49ers and the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, but as far as talent goes, the Saints might have been the most talented team in all of football last year. And Kirk Cousins went into their building and laid the smack down on them. Now, obviously, he had some help from his team. The defense did their thing. Dalvin Cook was good. But Kirk Cousins made the big-time throw. So I'm confident about Kirk Cousins going forward. I don't know if I'm confident in putting Kirk Cousins in my top 10, but I do think Kirk Cousins is knocking on the door as far as being a top 10 quarterback if he's not already. So I just want to see Kirk Cousins, go ball out and maybe make the playoffs for a second straight year. And then maybe I will consider putting him in my top 10 as far as quarterbacks go. But Kirk Cousins, he's very, very good. He's underrated. Now, also, I think Mike Zimmer's underrated as well. Mike Zimmer's a player's coach. He knows defense. His team is hard-nosed all the time. They play hard, and they play smart, and they're competitive. And Mike Zimmer's won a lot of games. And I will say I respect Mike Zimmer a lot, but I got to tell you something right now. Mike Zimmer, he will have to pull off one of, if not his best coaching job that he's ever had if this team wants to get to the playoffs once again. Because this team lost a lot of talent. Stephon Diggs, gone. Josh Klein, gone. Stephen Weatherly, gone. Everson Griffin, gone. Trey Waynes, gone. Xavier Rhodes, gone. Linval Joseph, gone. Mackenzie Alexander, all gone. All those good players are gone. Now, I understand that the Minnesota Vikings went out and had a very good draft. They drafted 15 players, and they virtually hit on nearly all those draft picks. Obviously you get Justin Jefferson, very talented player out of LSU at the wide receiver position. Obviously you get Jeff Gladney, cornerback out of TCU, who I was very high on. Urza Cleveland was a good pickup at offensive line. Troy Dye, I like that pick a lot. And also getting Kenny Willekes that late in the draft was an absolute steal. I get it. You found a way to try to reload your team in the draft. The only problem is, in this type of season in which we're dealing with a pandemic and this virus, there's not going to be a whole lot of there's not going to be any preseason games played. This is not a normal offseason for these rookies. And you're going to be relying on a lot of rookie players and a lot of young players to make plays for this team. And in a season in which the offseason is not normal for these guys, I wonder how up to speed these players are going to be once the season rolls around. Because the first 7 games of the season for the Vikings, 5 of them are against playoff teams. Green Bay, week 1. Colts on the road, week number 2. Titans week number 3, at Texans week 4, at Seahawks week 5, Falcons after that Seahawks game, then bye week, then at Green Bay. 5 of their first 7 games are against playoff teams from a year ago. Minnesota is going to have to get off to somewhat of a hot start if they want to make a playoff run, or either they're going to have to make up a lot of ground late in the season. And I'm just not so sure that I trust those young guys to be ready up to speed by week number 1 versus Aaron Rodgers, then of course you have to play the Colts, who to me can potentially be a playoff team. The Falcons to me can potentially be a playoff team. Not saying those teams will be playoff teams, but they'll at least be vying for playoff spots. And then the Titans, the Texans, the Seahawks, and the Packers, like I said, those are not easy games. So as a result, I am much lower on the Minnesota Vikings this season. Now let's talk about the offense. Kirk Cousins, I've already talked about him. Dalvin Cook, he is kind of holding out a little bit. I don't know what the whole situation is with Dalvin Cook and his new contract. I do think that he's actually potentially worth being paid because he's so vital to the Vikings offense. However, I've always been a guy that likes to do things running back by committee. But if Dalvin Cook can continue to be healthy, then he might be worth that contract. I would still be hesitant to give it to him. I want to see Dalvin Cook perform at a high level for another year. This is the first season in which he was healthy, and he still found a way to miss a couple of games and not be healthy at times. So I want to see how Dalvin Cook fares this year. Alexander Madison's a very solid backup running back. Obviously, you've got Adam Thielen, who might be a top 10 wide receiver. He's at least in that conversation. Justin Jefferson, I liked him a lot out of LSU. He's a good player. Tajay Sharp, not the best number 3 option, but he's solid. And then you got guys like Irv Smith, Kyle Rudolph, who are very good tight ends. The offensive line, however, is not that great. Pro Football Focus had the Vikings offensive line ranked 23rd last season. Now, obviously, Garrett Bradbury could look to take a step this year. This offensive line is not god-awful, but it's not impressing me at all. Every good defensive front the Vikings faced last year, this offensive line at times struggled against. So I worry about the offensive line. Now let's talk about the defense. Obviously, we mentioned earlier about how this defense is going to have a whole lot of new parts and a lot of new players playing big-time major roles and getting meaningful snaps. The secondary is going to be entirely revamped this year, led by Jeff Gladney, who's very talented, but I don't know if he's quite ready to take on that role as potentially being the number 1 cornerback this year. But let's talk about the players I feel good about. Danielle Hunter. If you don't know who Danielle Hunter is, you need to start paying attention because Danielle Hunter is an absolute beast. This guy the last 2 years has had 14.5 sacks back-to-back seasons. Anthony Barr, very good outside linebacker. Eric Kendricks, he's a real player. Harrison Smith, while he is 31 years old and could be entering the declining stages of his career, he's still very good. And Anthony Harris had 6 interceptions last year. So this defense has some real parts. I'm not going to tell you that the Vikings defense is going to be a top 10 unit like it was last year, simply because they just lost so many players. But if anyone can make up for those losses, it will be a Mike Zimmer coach team. Mike Zimmer is a very good defensive mind, and he's going to have these guys up to speed at least by mid-season, in my opinion. With all that being said, I'm not very high on the Vikings. I think the Vikings are an 8-win team this year. I don't think they're a playoff team. I have the Vikings going 8-8 during the 2020-21 NFL season. Now, could they make the playoffs? Maybe, but I'm not going to bet on it. I just look at this team, and I think they lost way too many key players. And ultimately, I don't think the offense is good enough to carry this team 24/7. This is not a team that has as many weapons as the Buccaneers or the Chiefs. This offense has the potential to be good, but not elite. This is probably not going to be a top 10 offense. Even if Kirk Cousins has an even better season than he had last year, I still think this team is not going to be a top 10 offense. So, I just don't think Minnesota has the horses this year to reach the playoffs once again. And I would maybe favor Minnesota a little bit more this season if they had a scheduling break. Meaning, the first couple games of the season, they play teams like, the Jaguars, the Panthers, who I don't think are very good this year. The bottom level teams. No. Right off the bat, they play the Colts, they play the Packers, they play the Seahawks, they play the Texans, they play good teams early in the season. So, I think this team mid-season can be clicking nearly on all cylinders, but by that time, it might be too late. So, let's go over the schedule and discuss how I feel about these games. I'm not officially predicting if the Vikings are going to win these games. I'm not giving you official game-by-game predictions. I'm just going to tell you who I would favor in each matchup. Green Bay, first game of the season. I favor Green Bay. Green Bay returns pretty much all their stars from a year ago outside of Bulaga and Martinez. And they did a good solid job of replacing those players. Green Bay swept Minnesota last year. Minnesota's a worse team than they were last year. I don't think that's up for debate. I have Green Bay winning that game. At Colts, that probably will be a win. I think that Kirk Cousins can outplay Phil Rivers, and I don't see this team starting off 0-2. Maybe it could happen, but I don't see it. Titans at home, that is a toss-up game. That could go either way. And if I were to give you my gut feeling, I favor Tennessee because I think Tennessee is a little bit better team. At Texans, that's probably a loss. It could be a win, though. Mike Zimmer is a better coach than Bill O'Brien. So the Vikings could win that game just off of coaching alone. I think Deshaun Watson will be too much for that Vikings team. At Seattle, the last couple years, the Seahawks have beaten the Vikings multiple times. I think Minnesota might be due for a win versus Seattle, but I would actually favor Seattle in that game. Falcons at home, you dominated them last year. You can potentially do the same thing this year. But I will say, I think that Atlanta's a better team than they were last year, so I won't be shocked if Atlanta wins that game. Bye week, I don't think that will matter in the matchup versus Green Bay in Green Bay. I just think that Green Bay is a better team than you. You will probably lose that game. Lions at home, I'd be splitting with the Lions this year. I think that you're going to win that game at home and lose it on the road. At Bears, Monday Night Football, the Chicago Bears are a bad matchup for the Vikings. I think that they actually will split with you guys this year. Cowboys at home, I think that's probably a win, but don't quote me on that because you beat Dallas in Dallas last season. Dallas might have an agenda to come out and prove to Minnesota that was a fluke last year. I think Dallas actually might be a more talented football team. So that's a toss-up game. Carolina, that's a win. Jaguars, I probably say that's a win. At Buccaneers, late in the season, I think the Buccaneers will be clicking on all cylinders. I have that probably as a loss. Saints, well, actually the Bears in Week 15 is the next game. Bears Week 15 at home. That's probably a win. Saints on Christmas Day. New Orleans is going to annihilate Minnesota. I know Minnesota the last couple of years has had New Orleans' number, but don't think Drew Brees and the Saints are not going to be motivated for that game. They're going to be motivated and have to prove a point. It's on the road in New Orleans. I'd be losing that game. And the Lions at home, that's probably a win. I think you split with the Lions this year. So, overall, either way I'll slice it, I see about 8 losses on this schedule. So, as a result, I have the Vikings going 8-8 during the 2020-21 NFL season. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.